The app said she was waiting at a Wendy's drive-thru at 2:47 in the morning, and I should have known right then that something wasn't right. My name is Derek Hollister, and I've been driving for Uber in Nashville for about 3 years now. And let me tell you, you learn pretty quick that nothing good happens after 2 in the morning on a Wednesday. I had just dropped off some college kid at an apartment complex off West End, and the streets were doing that dead, hollow thing they do after the bars close, and before anyone with a normal job starts their morning commute. I was about to head back to my apartment in Antioch when the request came through. Pick up at a Wendy's on Dickerson Pike, about 15 minutes north. $18 for a 22-minute ride to an address in Goodlettsville. Easy money, I figured. The extra cash would help, since my roommate had bailed on me the month before and left me covering rent alone. I tapped accept and headed that way, but when I pulled into the drive-thru line, I saw her standing near the exit door instead of inside, or at the curb like a normal person. She was wearing a pale blue dress that looked like it belonged in a different decade. No shoes, no purse, nothing in her hands. And her hair was long and dark, almost black, falling past her shoulders in a way that would have been pretty if the rest of her didn't look so fundamentally wrong. I watched her for a second, waiting for her to shift her weight or check her phone like any regular person would. But she just stood there, completely still, like someone had placed her there and forgotten to press play on her life. I pulled forward to the menu board and rolled down my window, but before I could say anything, she turned her head slowly, not quickly, not like a normal person would, but with this mechanical slowness that made my stomach tighten. When her eyes met mine, I felt something cold crawl up my spine. They were dark, not brown or black like a normal eye color, but like someone had drained the color out of them entirely, like looking into 2 wet stones sitting in a human face. She asked if I was her ride, and I said yes before my brain could catch up with my mouth. She opened my back door and got in without saying another word. The silence inside my car was immediate and heavy, the kind you feel in your teeth like pressure before a storm. She didn't say anything, didn't buckle a seatbelt, didn't touch anything, just sat there in the back seat with her hands resting in her lap, like she was posing for a photograph. I pulled out of the Wendy's and the app rerouted us onto the highway. But after we passed the exit for Briley Parkway, she leaned forward and told me to take the back roads instead. Her voice was quiet but firm, like she was telling me something that wasn't a request. I glanced at her in the rearview mirror and she was staring at me again. Not at the road, not out the window, at me. And I swear her eyes caught the dashboard lights in a way that didn't look right. Like the light was going in but not coming back out. I asked her why she wanted the back roads, and she said the highway had too many lights. I thought that was a weird thing to say, but I followed her instructions and turned off I-65 onto a 2-lane road that wound through some heavy woods with no streetlights and no houses visible. Nothing but darkness pressing against my windows on both sides. The radio started crackling with static, and when I tried to change the station, every channel came back as that same white noise hiss. It sounded like someone breathing into a microphone, slow and steady, and it made the hair on my arm stand up. I was about to ask her if she was okay when she spoke again, and this time her voice was different, deeper, like it was coming from somewhere else entirely. She asked me if I was scared. I laughed it off because what else was I supposed to do? But my hands were shaking on the wheel. She said, "Good, you should be." And then she told me to turn onto a dirt road I'd never seen before in my life. I rolled down my window and asked if she was my pickup, and she turned her head slowly. way too slowly, with this mechanical smoothness that made my stomach tighten in a way I can't really explain. When her eyes met mine, I felt something cold crawl up my spine and settle at the base of my skull. They were dark, not brown or black like a normal eye color, but like someone had drained all the color out of them entirely, like looking into two wet stones sitting in a human face. She said yes in this flat voice that didn't match the situation at all, and then she opened my back door and got in without saying another word. The silence inside my car was immediate and heavy, the kind you feel in your teeth like pressure before a thunderstorm. She didn't speak, didn't buckle a seatbelt, didn't touch anything, just sat there with her hands resting in her lap like she was posing for some kind of picture. I pulled out of the Wendy's and the app routed us onto I-65 North. But after we passed the Briley Parkway exit, she leaned forward from the back seat and told me to take the back roads instead. Her voice was quiet but firm, like she was telling me something that wasn't a request. And when I looked at her in the rearview mirror, she was staring directly at me with those empty eyes. I asked her why, and she said the highway had too many lights. I thought that was a weird thing to say, but I followed her instructions and got off at the next exit. The two-lane road wound through heavy woods with no streetlights and no houses visible. Nothing but darkness pressing against my windows on both sides, like we were driving through some kind of tunnel that didn't have walls. The radio started crackling with static, and when I tried to change the station, every channel came back with the same white noise hiss, except this wasn't regular static. It sounded like someone breathing into a microphone, slow and steady, and it made the hair on my arm stand up even though I had the AC blasting. I was about to ask her if she was okay when she spoke again, and this time her voice was different, deeper, like it was coming from somewhere else entirely, somewhere far away and cold. She asked me if I was scared. I laughed it off because what else was I supposed to do? But my hands were shaking on the wheel and I couldn't quite make them stop. She said, "Good, you should be." And then she told me to turn onto a dirt road I'd never seen before in my life. A road that wasn't on any map and didn't have a name anywhere that I could see. The trees on both sides closed in around my car like they were watching us, and I swear I heard something moving in the darkness between them. Something big, something that didn't want to be seen. The dirt road went deeper into the woods, and after about a mile, I started seeing things that didn't make any sense at all. Old cars were parked in clearings on both sides of the road, rusted, overgrown, like someone had just left them there decades ago and never came back. I counted 7 of them before I stopped counting, and every single one had the driver's door hanging open like the people who left them there in a hurry. Some of them still had things inside: a stuffed bear on a dashboard, a pair of work boots on a back seat, a pair of reading glasses sitting on the center console like the driver just stepped out for a minute. I slowed down because the path was full of potholes and narrow as hell, and that's when I noticed the woman in the back seat wasn't breathing. I'm not joking when I say that. Her chest wasn't moving at all. I watched her for a full 5 seconds, and nothing. Her shoulders weren't moving. Her stomach wasn't moving. Nothing. She was just sitting there in my back seat, not breathing like some kind of mannequin, and when I looked at her face in the mirror, she was smiling at me. Not a normal smile. This wide expression that stretched too far across her face and didn't reach her eyes because her eyes were still completely empty, like 2 dark holes where her soul should have been. I told her I needed to turn around, that I couldn't go any further, that this was crazy, and I was taking her back to the Wendy's right now. She tilted her head to the side like a confused dog and said no in that same flat voice. Except this time it sounded wrong. Like there were two of her saying it at once. One voice normal and one voice coming from somewhere deep and dark and far away. She told me I couldn't leave because the road only went one way, and I looked ahead and saw that the path had somehow ended at a massive oak tree that definitely wasn't there a minute ago. This thing was huge, wider than my car, with roots that twisted up out of the ground like fingers reaching for something, and bark that looked like a face if you stared at it long enough. I put the car in reverse, but the dashboard lit up with warnings I'd never seen before. Check engine, transmission failure, ABS system offline, everything at once. And then the steering wheel went completely rigid in my hands. It felt like someone was holding it, like some invisible force had locked it in place and wasn't letting go. I couldn't turn, couldn't move, couldn't do anything but sit there in my car at the end of a road that wasn't supposed to exist, with a woman in my back seat who wasn't breathing and hadn't been breathing this whole time. I got out of the car because I didn't know what else to do, because sitting there with my hands locked on a steering wheel, I couldn't move, felt like being buried alive in a metal coffin. The moment I pushed the door open and stepped outside, the cold hit me all at once. Not normal cold, not the kind you get from air conditioning or a chilly night in October. This was something else entirely, something that cut right through my shirt and jeans and into my bones like ice water being poured down my spine. I could see my breath coming out in big white clouds, even though it was the middle of July and should have been hot as hell outside, hot enough that I had been sweating just a few minutes ago. The air smelled wrong too, like wet earth and rot and something else I couldn't identify, something chemical and old at the same time. I stumbled back from my car and hit a tree. And when I looked up, the woman was stepping out of my back seat on her own, moving with these smooth, gliding movements that didn't look human at all, like someone was operating her from inside like a puppet on strings. She walked around to the front of my car and stood in front of my headlights, and that's when I got a good look at her dress in the dim light filtering through the trees. It wasn't pale blue anymore. It was covered in something dark and wet that I desperately wanted to believe was mud, except mud doesn't smell like copper and decay. Mud doesn't cling to fabric in thick patches like someone poured it there, and mud doesn't leave stains that look disturbingly like handprints on the sleeves. She told me I was going to help her now, and her voice echoed in the woods, even though we were surrounded by trees that should have muffled any sound. It sounded different outside than it did inside the car, deeper and layered, like there were multiple versions of her speaking at once from different directions, all converging on me. She said I was going to do exactly what she told me to do, and when I asked her what she was and who she was and why she looked like that, why she wasn't breathing, why her eyes were like that, she laughed. It wasn't a normal laugh. It sounded like breaking glass, like someone dragging metal across concrete, like something that didn't know how human laughter was supposed to sound and was just approximating it from memory. She said she was the one who called the Uber, said everyone who picks her up always helps her one way or another. And when I asked her what that meant, she pointed deeper into the woods where I could see a clearing with something in it that my brain refused to process at first. "God, please," I whispered, my voice shaking so bad I could barely get the words out. "Please, God, help me. I don't know what's happening. I don't know what this is." My knees were shaking, and my hands were trembling, and I was crying without even realizing it. Tears running down my face, mixing with the sweat and the blood from the scratches on my face from the branches. I felt like a child in the dark, completely helpless, completely alone against something I didn't understand and couldn't fight. She smiled at me when I said it, this horrible knowing smile, and said, "God doesn't come to this place anymore." Nobody does. I ran. I didn't think, didn't look back, didn't grab my phone or my wallet or anything from my car. I just ran into the woods, crashing through branches and brambles that tore my arms and face open, running until my lungs burned and my legs gave out, running until I hit a real road and flagged down a passing truck driven by some old guy who looked at me like I was losing my mind. He asked me what happened, and I couldn't find the words to tell him. I couldn't find the words to tell myself. I kept looking over my shoulder the whole time he drove me to that gas station, kept expecting to see her following us through the trees, keep expecting to hear that breaking glass laugh coming from somewhere close. But there was nothing, just darkness and trees and the sound of my own ragged breathing. And somehow, that was worse. The old truck driver dropped me off at this gas station off Highway 41 about an hour and a half ago, and I've been hiding in the bathroom ever since, with the door locked and my back against the wall. I can see my car through the grimy window, parked at the edge of the lot, with the hazards still blinking like they have been this whole time. She's in the driver's seat, with her hands resting on the wheel exactly where I left them. And she's just sitting there staring at the gas station like she knows exactly where I am, and she's content to wait as long as it takes. I asked the gas station attendant to go check on it, and he walked outside with this confused look on his face and came back and told me the car was empty, just sitting there with the hazards on like someone abandoned it. He looked at me like I was some kind of lunatic, and maybe I am, but I know what I saw through that window. She's out there right now, and she hasn't moved a single inch, hasn't blinked, hasn't done anything except sit there in my car in the middle of the night, looking like something that crawled out of a nightmare I once had and never fully woke up from. The fluorescent lights above me are flickering and buzzing in a way that makes my head hurt worse than it already does, and the gas station attendant keeps asking me if I'm okay, if I need him to call someone, if I need him to call the police. I don't know what to tell him because I don't know what to tell myself anymore. The app on my phone just buzzed with a new request, and I know it's her because the pickup location shows this gas station parking lot, and the destination is somewhere I've never heard of, a place that doesn't appear on any map and has a name I can't even pronounce. The fare is listed as everything I have, which doesn't make sense as a dollar amount, but makes perfect sense as something else entirely. I'm standing here with my hand on the bathroom door handle, and I'm trying to decide what the hell I'm supposed to do now. I can stay in this bathroom until someone comes, or until I completely lose my mind, watching her through the window and knowing she's watching me, existing in this horrible limbo where neither of us moves forward and I slowly fall apart from the inside out. Or I can walk outside right now, get in my car, and follow her to wherever that address takes me. I've been driving for Uber for 3 years, and I've learned one thing above all else. You always pick up who calls. You always finish the ride. That's the job, no matter how crazy it gets. My name is Derek Hollister, and in about 5 minutes, I'm going to walk out that door and get in my car. And whatever happens after that happens. If you're reading this, maybe it means I made it. Maybe it means the road only went one way, and I found out where that is. Either way, trust me when I tell you this, never, ever take a late night ride from a woman without shoes. Never. I'm getting out of the bathroom now, and I'm not looking back.